Hello, my name's Gavin, this is Genre Books. After a quiet January on the book front, February comes at you like a sledgehammer. There are events all over the place, and with the best will in the world, I would not be able to participate in all of them. I found out very late about Feb Regency, so I'll put a pin in that for next year. I certainly couldn't do all the prompts for Homes is Where the Heart Is. I just don't have the time. But I hope to do at least one book to half participate in that event. There are events I am participating in. Fantasy in February, Winter of Wyndham. There are my own events, 50 Zanes of Grey, Project Rabbit Hole, and the upcoming one I'm preparing for, the Marple Cinematic Universe. And there is Filmtastic February, an event created by Annie at Obscure Book Adventures and co-hosted by Roy at Roy Reads Anything and Duncan from Backaway from the Donkey. There are prompts for this event. I can't do them all. I've tried, I think, to cover almost all of them. With week 1, it's a novel that became a film or a novel about filmmaking. Week number 2, prompt number 2, is biography or autobiography. Week 3 is a novelization or a TV movie tie-in. And week 4 is a fan magazine or a film magazine. The main book I chose for this straddles the first 2 prompts whilst being not quite either one. It's The Lost Worlds of 2001. It's not a novel about anything, but it contains short stories and alternate scenarios for the film 2001. It's not a biography or an autobiography, but Arthur C. Clarke is writing about his own memories of making the film, working with Stanley Kubrick, and diary entries from the pre-production phase of the movie. It's an interesting book. Certainly more interesting if you love Arthur C. Clarke, like I do, and you love 2001, like I do, and you like the films of Stanley Kubrick, like I do. It details the very genesis of Kubrick and Clarke creating in partnership both the novel and the film. It also allows Clarke to display a little more forthright some of the humour which is sometimes there in his work but not often at the forefront. It also details him getting a little bit annoyed occasionally with Stanley Kubrick, a well-known perfectionist. And it also contains alternate sequences and endings for the novel and the film, which made it to neither the final draft nor the screen. And Clarke here does acknowledge this is an odd way of making a film or writing a book. I am concerned here, however, not with the movie, but with the novel, regarded as an independent and self-contained work, even though it was created specifically as the basis for the movie. This, of course, is the reverse of the usual state of affairs. Most movies are adapted from already existing novels, preferably ones which have proved to be bestsellers and so have built-in box office guarantee. Good examples are Gone with the Wind and Dr. Zhivago. Other movies are based on screenplays specifically written for them and no novel version or even novelization ever exists. More on novelizations a little later. There are diary entries which show not only the effort that's being put in, the different directions that the film may have been going in, but also give an example into the sometimes fractious but sometimes humorous relationship between Kubrick and Clarke, and also some of the humour there as well. Stanley calls after screening H.G. Wells' Things to Come and says he'll never see another movie I recommend. There's also a diary entry which promises a fantastic meeting which we never see the result of. December 21st, much of the afternoon spent by Stanley planning his Academy Award campaign for Dr. Strangelove. I get back to the Chelsea to find a note written from Allen Ginsberg asking me to join him and William Burroughs at the bar downstairs. Do so, thankfully, in search of inspiration. November the 10th, accompanied Stan and the design staff into the Earth orbit ship and happened to remark that the cockpit looked like a Chinese restaurant. Stan said this killed it instantly for him and called for revisions. Must keep away from the art department for a few days. November 16th. Long session with Stanley discussing script. Several good ideas, but I rather wish we didn't have any more. As the book goes on, we see more of the writing that Clarke was doing for the book as the production went on, and the myriad different ways the story could have developed, none of which I think would have been good as what we actually got on screen. Some of which more ambitious, but I don't think would have translated to the screen as well. Notably, the different manifestations of what became Hal. In short, it was a joy to read around one of my favourite films and a book by one of my favourite science fiction writers. So, yes, I'm glad that counted maybe for 2 weeks worth of prompts. It really would be a stretch, however, to think that that book could count as a novelisation. For that, I've had to turn to another book, which I am currently 40 pages away from finishing. Now, this book counts towards fantasy in February, because there are fantastical elements going on here. It certainly counts towards Filmtastic February. It counts towards my Project Rabbit Hole because it's a Bangsian fantasy, because they actually go to hell in the book. And it also counts towards Garb August 3.5 because it's certainly trash and I'm reading it on the wasted weekend. And it's also going to count as a book I've read towards the Read What You Own challenge, so actually 5. Robert Tyne seems to have made a specialism out of novelizations and TV tie-ins. Does have some of his own original work. Broken Eagle is a novel about a crashed plane after a nuclear war. But in general, if you look at his list of books he's written, you'll see a certain theme of movie novelizations, if not a theme in the types of movies that he is making novelizations of. We, of course, have Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, but we have The Astronaut's Wife, Outbreak, Beverly Hills Cop 2, The Bodyguard, Hard Target, Demolition Man, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Forever Young, Beethoven, Beethoven's Second, and 2 books of Beethoven's puppies. I've got to admit, those are films I've not seen. The Last Action Hero, Mulholland Falls, Universal Soldier, Eraser, Red Heat, Chain Reaction, and finally a mystery novel based on Dallas. Who Killed Jock Ewing? Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey is okay. It does what it's supposed to as a novelisation. I don't think it is triumphant, nor do I think it is bogus. It's somewhere in between. Like a clue in a hostage video, the very first sentence, Robert Tyne, lets us know that there is a writer trying to get out of this novelisation with a nice little literary allusion. The first line, I don't have it in front of me, But the future is a different country. They do things most triumphantly there. I have not seen the film in what must be a quarter of a century, so it did bring back some nice memories. So thank you, Robert, for that. And then we have the magazines. I mentioned in my last Read What You Own video that I had read this. It really did not take very long. But Jayne Mansfield for President. It's a very odd piece. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose or the genesis of this magazine book was. It wasn't even released in a year where there was a presidential race happening. So I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of this is. It is just poking fun at some national figures and some international figures and some bad jokes and some boob jokes and some bad jokes about boobs. There is very little information I can find about this work. I don't know who the author is. I don't know how involved Mansfield was in its production. I assume she must have had some involvement, at least because some of the pictures are too obviously posed for this magazine. And she must have had some reason behind wanting to do it. Unlike the persona she presented to the world, she was not a dumb blonde. But I really don't have much to say for the work other than it is something that I read this week. The last thing I read this week was Screenland, a movie magazine from, I think this one was from 1921, December 1921. And it was a magazine which ran monthly for half a century, from 1920 to 1971. It's got pulp elements, although I don't call it a pulp magazine. And it is a very odd mishmash of articles, stories, pictures, rumours, and editorial. Unlike most magazines which were published in New York, this one was published initially, at least, in Los Angeles. And one editorial in the magazine, they're congratulating themselves on the fact that they are based in Los Angeles and how difficult it was to set this up on the West Coast rather than the East. This state of affairs didn't last long, however, because I think in 1923 they decamped to New York, and there's a little bit of a pulp tangential connection. They were sold in 1952 to Ned Pines, who is the man behind the Thrilling group of pulp magazines. The lead story in this particular issue is really quite odd. 2 or 3 months prior to this issue's publication, a silent movie actress, Virginia Rappe, Virginia Rappe, was found dead at a party hosted and organised by Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, who was a very famous and successful, until that point, silent movie star. Arbuckle actually stood trial for her manslaughter and was not only acquitted but I think exonerated. But the rumour persisted and stuck to him, and his career never recovered, even to a small extent. But he had people in the industry rallying round him even before the trial. This is a very odd story because it's coming out before any trial has taken place, but the magazine has decided that he's innocent and is calling on the expert testimony of the actress herself. She is communicating through a psychic, and this psychic has eyewitnesses. to prove that she's not making this up. It goes into salacious detail about it, not only in Rapp's testimony exonerating Arbuckle, but the fact that 6 of these eyewitnesses were other ladies who took the psychic aside into a room, stripped her naked to make sure there were no hidden microphones or speakers or what have you. It's not really a convincing case for the defence. And to be honest, I can't imagine that this helped Arbuckle's actual defence, which he presumably was trying to mount at this point. I read a lot of fiction and pulp fiction from around this time and a little bit later. And yes, it's dated, but nothing seems to be as dated as this non-fiction magazine. There are the usual crazy adverts. There is a complete absence of anyone who isn't white, apart from one article about Native Americans with derogatory headline. There is this implicit belief not only in psychics but also in the scientific interpretation of why you may find Dick Barthelmess handsome, which is only one step away from weird sort of phrenological explanations of why certain bumps on the skull means that a person is predisposed to be a criminal. I mean, Dick Barthelmess is a very good looking chap, and I'm sorry ladies, but he died in 1963. There's also fashion tips about where to get the best furs and sealskin coats. And they run a very odd competition of people to send in professional photographs of themselves in order to find the next star of Hollywood. This magazine is very industry focused, inside industry. It is exploitative. It's bitchy. It has a wonderful page where subscribers to the magazine can send in their screenplays to be vetted and feedback given. And some of the criticism of the screenplays given by the critic who is reviewing them pull absolutely no punches. I can imagine this might have even lost them subscribers. It is absolutely tabloid. But there are occasional little gems in there. One of the new movies they're reviewing is The Shake with Rudolph Valentino. They also managed to squeeze in, for no reason whatsoever that I can tell, a full page nude study. I think it'd be very interesting for someone who is a big fan of silent movies, that there is tidbits, rumours that they can pick up on, and they will see the advertising as a new product of some things which they only know through cinematic history, or in fact don't know at all, because over 3/4 of silent movies are lost to us. I'll probably be reading more Screenland at some point, but I don't think on this first experience that I am in a great rush to do so. So those are my experiences with Filmtastic February. There will be more cinema coming with the Marple Cinematic Universe in March. But for now, I'd like to thank Annie, Roy and Duncan for the creation and co-hosting of this BookTube event. Sorry I couldn't participate fully, but I had fun with the bits that I did. So until next time, bye.